I'm always humbled to be invited to tell stories at Mesra, so thank you very much, Rod, for inviting me. And I want to tell you about this time I was dating someone for 2 years. And in that relationship I had just lost my mom before I got into the relationship. And during that 2-year romance, my partner lost his dad. And so we were both grieving. And we weren't the best versions of ourselves. And he was 11 years older than me, and he was at a stage in his life that he was ready to settle down. And I was 21 or 22. And I think he looked at me and thought, he has potential. I can shape him into the kind of man I would like him to be, and I will make him my dream partner. But he didn't discuss this with me, he just started doing it to me. And I don't think it was very nice. He didn't really discuss it with me, he was kind of using me. And when I reflect back on it now, I realize I was also using him. And there's really no hero or no villain in that romance. We were just very bad versions of ourselves. So after 2 years of that, when I finally managed to break up with him, and as a very young man, as a people pleaser, and as an alcoholic who didn't know it yet, I found it very hard to say no to anyone, and I found it very hard to set and maintain a boundary. So when I broke up with him, I made a really, really bad decision. I decided the best way to not fall back into a relationship with him, to not have him kind of cajole me or convince me to get back with him, was to just get another boyfriend immediately. And so to use someone else and prevent him from using me. And I know it's a little bit evil, it's a little bit mischievous, it's a little bit devious, and I made very poor decisions back then. I'd like to say I make better decisions today, but actually I'm just more aware of them. So, also in those days, I was living in a house in Dublin that was quite famous as the party house. We were 3 waiters working in the Hard Rock Cafe in Dublin, and every Friday, Saturday and Sunday we would just bring other wait staff from Temple Bar back to our house, and we'd party all night and drink beer and smoke spliffs and have a cool time, right? And on one of these evenings, when I've broken up, by the way, the person I dumped was a drag queen. It's to help the story moving on. When I broke up with a drag queen, on one of these evenings that we were having a random party in my house, I was going to bed and I was walking through my kitchen, and I saw in the corner this beautiful man. He was moving and throwing shapes in my kitchen. He was tall and broad. He had brown hair and a brown beard. He looked like a gladiator. And I don't know why, it's never happened since, but in that moment as I looked at him, I just knew I had power over him. And I could see that he was vulnerable. And I just took him by the wrists, no words spoken, and I brought him up the stairs to my bedroom in a boss move. And we started kissing passionately, and we fell into bed. And have you ever played Mario Kart? Now, as gay guys, playing computer games is one of your first opportunities to experiment with femininity in a safe, public way. So very often, gay guys will pick the princess character to play Mario Kart, or will pick Chun-Li to play Street Fighter 2. And in that moment, you're performing being a girl or being feminine, but it's in a computer game with boys and it's safe, right? Yeah. And when you go to bed with a guy, it's always wondering who's Mario and who's the princess, right? So Mario likes to fix plumbing, and he likes to get into tight spaces. He likes to go, thank you. He likes to go on adventures and rescue people and be the star character, right? And the princess likes to be rescued. She likes to have her plumbing examined. And as a gay person, in a sexual encounter or a game of Mario Kart, we have the unique opportunity of getting to choose to either be Mario or the princess, or to be both at different points in the game, right? And so on this evening, we're both Mario. And I really want him to be my princess. And he really wants me to be his princess. And none of us is willing to concede. So we have a bit of a stalemate and we fall asleep. I know somebody there went, oh, no. You're allowed to, oh, it's okay. And then the next day, he invites me out for dinner, and as 2 waiters working in a summer in Dublin, we feel like we understand the restaurant industry. And to go for a date together as 2 waiters, like we're quite judgy of the restaurant that we're going to and the menu and the other wait staff. And as we're going through the menu, he orders something vegetarian, right? And so I order something vegetarian. And he looks at me and goes, oh, are you a vegetarian? And I'll tell you now, I wasn't. But in that moment, in an impulse, I found myself saying, oh yeah, I'm a vegetarian. And that was a lie that I stuck to for 10 years. Just to impress him. Right? I'm also an Aries. So as we're dating and having our vegetarian meal, he tells me at the end of the summer he's going to move to Belgrade in Serbia, that he wants to learn Serb-Croat, that Serbia was coming out of a very dark chapter in its history and now is an opportunity for Serbia to rebuild itself. And he wanted to be instrumental in helping Serbia to recover. And I found this captivating and inspirational and sexy. And this gladiator eating vegetables in front of me in Dublin was the hottest thing I'd ever seen, right? And so we start discussing having a long-distance relationship and if it will work. And for me, it's perfect. It means I have a boyfriend so I don't slip back into the drag queen relationship, but he'll be so far away I'll feel like I don't really have a boyfriend, right? All my desires met, but he doesn't know this. I'm not old enough or mature enough to tell him that this is the situation I want. He just thinks, oh, what a pity I have to live in Serbia so far away from you, but let's make it work. Off over he moves, I'm delighted. I fly over to visit him on one of these weekends, and he brings me to meet a group of his friends. They're all blonde, beautiful girls. They play tennis and hockey. They're very sporty. They speak several languages. They're very well educated and very intelligent. And one of the girls' moms says to her when she's coming to meet these Irish boys, be careful with those Irish boys. They're only after one thing. And the girl says to her mom, Mom, they're homosexuals. And the mom says, ah, so they exist. She thought that we were characters made up in stories like vampires. We're going to give him a fake name. Let's call him Colin. Colin brings me to a nightclub in Serbia that's underground and all the walls are black and there's chalk, and you're encouraged to style the club and draw the club to your own liking. And he's writing slogans of rebellion and revolution in Irish, English and Serb-Croat, and it's so hot, right? It's so sexy. And we leave that club and we're walking home at about 2 in the morning. We're going down a boulevard in Serbia, and in the daytime this boulevard is full of plastic chairs and cafes and people drinking cappuccinos and sipping wine and living their European life. But at night time, these plastic chairs are stacked away and chained up against certain walls, and we're wading through them like a maze. And we're holding hands in the middle of Serbia, and it's beautiful. But we don't know there's 2 guys hiding behind a stack of chairs. And when they see us, they jump out. And one fella has a knuckle duster on his wedding ring. And he swings like this, and he clips me in the temple. And I kind of spin out, and I'm kind of dizzy, and there's like, I think, a little bit of blood trickling. And the other fella is properly squaring up to Colin, and they're having a punch-up. And I don't really know what's happening, and we're kind of panicking. And Colin is shouting at them in Serb-Croat, and I can only imagine he's saying, stop this, leave us alone, go away. I don't know what he's saying, but suddenly I am inspired to hail a taxi. And I'm on the edge of this circle of toxic masculinity. I'm watching this circus of chaos. And I cab, please. And this taxi pulls up and I open the door and I shout in English at Colin, get in the cab now, Colin. And the 2 attackers drop their arms. And they say in English, sorry, brother, we did not know you were strangers. We would not have done this if we knew you are strangers. And I think at that moment, is the Serb-Croat for foreigner, stranger, are they interchangeable? And does he mean because we're foreigners, he wouldn't do this? And in Serbia at that time, it was very hard to get out, and the people of Serbia are kind of trapped in their country, they can't go anywhere. And it reminds me of my village in Castellisland, County Kerry, where people go out on the weekends and they get super drunk. We've got 40 pubs for 5,000 people, and when they spill out on the streets at 12:30 at night when all the pubs close, they have nowhere to go. They're trapped. There's no public transport, and they're all waiting for 2 or 3 taxis to bring them all home in small groups. So while they're trapped on the streets of Castellisland, they fight, and they have a punch-up and they have a brawl. They have such violent fights that I remember as a school kid one morning walking to school, watching the police washing blood off the ATM on the street in my town. So now when I'm here in Serbia and these guys have attacked us and they said, sorry, we didn't know you're strangers, I kind of understood. They're just bored. We thought this was a homophobic attack. This was actually like a mark of brotherhood. And Colin is not buying it. And Colin's ego is bruised. And Colin does not like that they've attacked us and he wants to keep going. And I managed to grab him and get him into the cab. And when we're in the cab, we're in shock. And the taxi driver refuses to take us anywhere except the train station or home. He's not going to the police station. And Colin is shouting at him. And eventually he brings us to Colin's house. And we come inside and we're very upset and we're really in shock. And there's still a little bit of blood. And we're kind of both crying. And we don't really know what happened. And as a journalist, I said, let's just write down everything that happened. Let's just detail what happened. So I get my pen and my paper. And my handwriting is enormous and really psychotic. And I'm writing in giant letters, Serbia. And he's going, oh, you're great, Joseph. You're great. And I'm like, midnight. He goes, that's wonderful, Joseph. I'm like, why is he love bombing me when this is clearly not wonderful? And then he presses his nose in behind my ear. And I realised he wants to play a game of Mario Kart. And I'm not sure why he wants to turn this trauma into a sex thing. And I say to him, can we just write down what's going on? And he says that was a homophobic attack. That was not boys having a punch-up. And he said that is an act of aggression against us. And we should have gay sex as an act of queer evolution against their aggression to right this wrong. And I know he wants me to be the princess. What would you do? Would you be the princess?
Yes.
Of course. The princess wins. So we start making love while we're crying. And we continue to weep and howl as we have sex and try to undo this homophobic attack. We fall asleep wrapped up in each other, and the next day I leave and I go back to Ireland. A month later he comes to visit me. It's December, Christmas is coming, and he's going to spend a few days with me in Dublin, and then go down to meet his family, and then we're going to fly to Amsterdam to visit my brother for New Year's. We exchange gifts. He got me a white t-shirt that he'd written all over quotes of things we'd said to each other. I know. He burnt a CD of songs that were significant to us from that summer and that autumn. He presents them to me and he says, Happy Christmas. He's a student in Serbia and he has no money. I had bought him the flights to Amsterdam and I think we're done. He then looks me in the eyes and says, I want to give this a shot, so I'm leaving Serbia. I'm moving to Dublin to live with you. He did not discuss this with me. Red flags. I did not tell him I was using him to not get back with the drag queen. I am also a red flag. I say to him, this is not going to work. You can't give up your life in Serbia to move in with me. The thing I find most attractive about you is that you live about 3,000 kilometers away. He's really confused and crestfallen, and he leaves dumped and broken. A few days later, as I'm boarding my flight for Amsterdam, I'm quite surprised to see Colin on the plane beside me. I'm like, oh, are you still coming to Amsterdam? He says, well, if I can't move in with you in Dublin, I'm going to go live in Amsterdam with a friend for a couple of months. He's so footloose and free. So sexy. So I'm going to be with her for 2 months, and then I'll probably move to Split in Croatia to carry on learning Serb-Croat. Right? He wasn't a musician, but he has musician vibes. So I say to him, am I going to see you in Amsterdam? He says, if you want to. So we fly over, and it snowed, like 2 feet of snow, and the canals are frozen, and the girl who's hosting him is gone. And we have the most romantic 5 days together, right? We play Mario Kart every single day. Sometimes I'm the princess, sometimes I'm Mario, so is he. We kind of fight over it. One day he says to me that the shower is bolted to the wall and he can't get it down to deep clean himself like he'd like to. And so I offer to wash him, and it becomes this really beautiful, vulnerable, loving moment where we're super real to each other, and we just wash each other, and we just love each other. And then on the 5th day, he goes to Lalybell without me to meet some Serb-Croats. And there he meets a diamond dealer called Dario. And when he comes back, I'm leaving to go to the train station, and he comes to say goodbye, and he takes out this blue box with a dirty diamond in it, and it says, Dario gave me this. And I look at it and I think, what is the symbology? Are you asking me to give you another go? Are you telling me that Dario is your new princess? And I think, I don't actually need to know the answer. I know that I used you, I know that I hurt you, and I know this is kind of a strike back. I kiss him on the cheek, I wish him a happy new year, and I leave for Dublin. And 20 years later, we are complete strangers to each other. Aww.